Righto, so in this video I'm gonna talk about putting a basic invasion build together. Um, this is all quite off the cuff, so there'll be a lot of stuff I missed. But I just want to show some of the tools that I use in invasions and, and why I use them. I thought it might be helpful to anyone who's just thinking about invasions. There are a lot of people who are better invaders than me, but you know, I've been at this for a little while now, like a year and a half, so I have learned some things. So we're going to make a level 200 strength intelligence build. What the actual build is, I don't want you to focus on that. More just kind of, beg your pardon, the general approach and behind what I'm doing. So I'll just start by grabbing my build planner, the Elden Ring build calculator, which you can Google for yourself. And this character is a vagabond starter. That's a pretty good one. This is my mule. The build that I'm going to make actually optimizes best with a prisoner though, so it's worth checking what starter you should use rather than just always going vagabond. It's only one level difference, but hey, that's one level. And I'll just very quickly work out what my stats are going to be. Yeah, maybe 14 there, and the rest into endurance. Okay, that looks fine. Cool. Alright, let's level up. So, I'm going to have 60 vigor. That's obvious. I think most people know that 60 is the soft cap for vigor. Now, because this is a very high level build that uses a lot of Ashes of War, I'm going to put a little into mind because I can afford to. Now, Starlight Shards make mind less important, but yeah, I can afford to. I'm going to make it 200 because that's currently my preferred level to invade. So I'm going to 54 strength. That's the two-handed soft cap for strength. That's endurance. Whoopsie daisy. Okay. 35 endurance on this one. 54 strength. And I'm actually going to take 20 dexterity. That's because I want to have access to dual nagis on the build and a great bow. Now you can get a great bow with 18 dexterity, and dual spears aren't really necessary. They're kind of a shitter thing. Well, they're more or less the ultimate shitter thing. But I like to have access to them, even if I don't main them. I like to have them in my inventory. Okay, so that's me all leveled up. Next thing I'm going to do is put on my preferred fashion. Now, I could go more optimal than this, and it might be worth doing that, but I think having a cool character is important as long as you don't completely throw defenses out the window. So for me, I have a favorite fashion that I wear, so I'm just going to put that on now. It's not optimal, but it's decent. It gets reasonable defenses, and if I swap in the poise tally, it also gets okay poise. It gets 89 poise. That's something. What would 89 poise do for me? Yeah, well, it can like help not get stagger locked by a curved sword, say, like Shamshir. It's not a break point anymore. That's just how much. It used to be let you tank a heavy thrusting sword, and I just haven't changed my fashion since because I like it. Now, so here I am. I'm looking cool. Let's just look at some talismans. So I have my own system of swapping talismans. There are plenty good guides on like advanced tally swapping for the arena and stuff. I find this way of doing it works for me, and you might find that some of the talismans that are mainstays of the arena are not in my setup, just because I don't find them as useful when you can heal and when it's a 3v1. Something like putting on Blue Feathered Branch Sword, kind of not as important as just getting the hell out of there, trying to break contact and actually heal up. Even if you're out, you can use, well, I'll show you what you use for that. Okay, so I put in bull goats. That can be swapped in against like little weapons so that you can poise the second hit rather than, yeah, which is helpful for trading. I'll put in spear. Now, this top line are ones that I'm going to swap into from my main one. So spear talisman, that's a good one for my build. You got to think about what stacks with what you're using. All right. And what else? I can put in dagger talisman. Ritual sword could be a good one to have. And that's just because even though I'm not necessarily going to run into a fight with that, if I'm like at range, I'm going to use the jar cannon. That's going to boost its damage. If I'm wanting to do a sneaky bow, like kill, I can use the arrow sting and ritual sword to like go for a stealth kill with a bow, or if I'm camping near a ladder or something. So it says that my top line, that's my top line. Okay, so my second line is a little bit more important. Stalwart Horn Charm, robustness, so that protects against frost and bleed, and bleed being the important one. I don't really give that much of a shit about frost. Though frost is strong, it's just like I don't care as much about it proccing. Okay, and then I put in, now this is like the talisman I swap from. I put it in this slot here, so I have 4 directions I can easily, well, really, yeah, more than 4. I can go diagonally as well, but it's easy to do a straight up left, right, down swap in 4 directions from this. And then I'm going to put in Blessed Dew, that's for cockroaching. And now I'll put the other main talisman that I'll be swapping on this build. Is Shard of Alexander. And like Crimson Seed, that's a good one. Put that in. If you're running low on heals and they're not right in your face, you can get the most out of that. Crimson Seed. I like the other status resistance tallies, so I'm going to put in Immunizing Horn, and this one's very important. This is the Madness and Sleep resistance one, so I'll put that in. And as far as other stuff goes, dealer's choice. Like I think the more important ones are like your damage boost ones. This, and these status resistance ones. Because if you stack this with the consumable of the same type, or this with the consumable of the same type, and a spiral horn, you get the ability to briefly kinda trade with a bleed build or a madness build. And you're probably, if you're not running that kind of build yourself, you're probably going to do higher straight up damage than them. So if you can trade for that moment, you maybe kill them. But you can't just ignore their status build up either. Of course, you're going to have to back up and bolus after a time. And other stuff, I can have this, which is the mottled, which will, this does all of the status things, so this will stack with these if you want to put both in. And there's a lot more useful talismans, but because I'm not like planning this and spending ages on this, which I generally don't when I throw a build together. I just get the very basics in, and then these are required for my equip load to work with my heaviest weapon. So let's just go ahead and put those in now. And while I'm in my inventory, I can show you down here, I've moved my HP and FP flasks off to the side, because when you invade, the temporary bloody finger appears there, and it's really annoying. A lot of the time you can accidentally use that instead of your heal, unless you heal from your pouch, but I don't like doing that. So the way to get rid of that is you just, as you're spawning in, before you can move, you can go in here and remove that just quite quickly by pressing up, and then square, and that removes it before you can even before you've spawned all the way in. And then when you can move, the thing I usually do is drink my flask of Wondrous Physic if they're near me. Otherwise, if they're not, of course you gotta go look for them. Before we get into weapons, let's talk consumables. Right now, this one has the anti-bleed buff in. That's alright. There's different things you can do for different builds. And you can see I've got rot pots. Well, those are good too. So one thing you might do is I'll just go ahead and discard some of those rot pots. And what I often like to have is rot pots on my left arrow. And if I just craft some albinuric pots, and they can go on my right arrow. That's one thing you can do, and that's pretty solid. So these will proc. At 200 it would take 2 pots. At lower levels you'd probably get it in 1. It procs rot, so that gives you pressure. Very, very good against evasive players. A lot of the time, people who know what they're doing aren't going to want to, if they've got numbers, they aren't going to want to rush you. Or they might rush you down, that's actually worse. But a lot of the time they will play evasive and try and bait you to go for 1, and then they'll all swarm you. Worse is where they just all pressure you, but, well, then you're probably fucked, but maybe not. You might be able to turn it on them. We'll look at ways you can do that. If I remember. Now, just going through this, fan daggers, I keep them in my down arrow for quick access. That is good for popping people's bubbles. It's also good, depending on your stats, for finishing off someone who has 1 pixel of health left. If you don't have stats behind the fan daggers, like if you'd say an int build, they're not as good, and you might have other options within your spells that you could use there. But this is a strength build, a strength and int build rather. So I get something on my fan dagger, so they're worth using. Dex obviously would be optimal for them. At the top here I have my boluses. Now the reason they're in this slot is because this is when I push opening my menu, this is the fastest one I can get to. And then if I push triangle, I can switch all my different boluses here. And that's obviously quite important to have the right one. Like, if someone's using a bunch of different statuses, you might even swap out, say, these for, say, they're using bleed and rot. You might swap that in. Going back here, you can see I've got raw meat dumplings here. And you can also see I didn't get all of them when I made this mule, because getting all of them would have required me take my weapon upgrade up, and this is a +0 mule. Let's just put the rest of my tallies in. So this shard, good for your burst damage, like in Invasion, getting rushed by a bunch of hopefully morons, like hitting them with an Ash of War that you probably couldn't land in the arena and just deleting 1 in a couple of moves makes that thing a whole lot more winnable. Alright, So what was I talking about? Yeah, swapping the boluses, obviously important. Going down here, you got my physic. As you can see, I've got Crimson Bubble Tier and Opaline Hard Tier in, aka the default physic, right? For at least for high level stuff. I would say if you're doing a lower level build, there are better options. If you're going like say 30, really low, you would get rid of the bubble tier, maybe go for regen, the Crimson Burst tier, and arguably you might want to get rid of hard tier as well, because you're not going to get one shot at that level. You might prefer the speckled hard tier for anti-bleed, because that is probably going to be the more relevant burst damage against you from over-leveled phantoms. You yourself will also have bleed available to you, though you probably wouldn't want to go at it through an arc build. But let's not get too expansive on this. Let's just go through the basics. You can see here I've got Frenzy Flame Stones and Warming Stones here. Now this character doesn't have Frenzy Eyes, because I stupidly chose the Golden Order ending, because I'd never got it before. I wish I'd just gone the Frenzy ending like I always do on a PvP build, because these two stack. And if you've got FP, you can get a full heal fairly quickly with these two together, if you can break contact. Now, as far as FP goes, you wouldn't want to drink a flask to do that. You'd want to use one of these Starlight Shards. You got 10. You're pretty much never going to use all of these in an invasion. If they're not right in your face, it's a good way to get your FP back. So you're casting a heal from these things. Now, speaking of flasks, I run 12 and 2, which is 6 and 1. Because, like I say, I do need one to get my FP back in a pinch. But really the main thing I need is my red flasks and my meat dumplings, which you can't have drops, so don't use them until you've finished your build. Even if the invasion gets really sweaty, if you're invading before your build's finished and backed up, if you're going to work on your build more, do not use these. Wait until you finish your build. And then you got 3 extra heals. Now, these aren't just important for when you run out of these. These are important if someone throws one of these at you or uses the winged scythe, that blocks your healing from these two. So you have to heal from this. Or a spell if you're a faith build and can get the space. But yeah, really, the dumplings. They're almost as fast as an Estus. They heal more, actually, I think. And then you're going to need, at some point, to use your neutralizing boluses, because you'll have poisoned yourself eating one. But, don't try and eat the bolus in their face if they're still trying to rush you down. You need space, and the poison damage really isn't that much. It adds up over time, but it's in a crazy, chaotic fight not that important that you heal that poison right away. Try and kill one of them instead. Okay, so that would be a default, but for this build, we're going to put something else here. We'll get rid of these because this is a 200, and I like aromatic pots better than rot pots at 200. So, and the reason for that is, while rot pots are still useful, they take 2 to proc, whereas they take 1 at lower levels. So, I'm just going to go ahead and run 10 aromatic. These are sleep pots. These are decent as well. If you want to land something a little bit slower, and also it depletes FP. So if you're trying to burn out a mage phantom's FP, you can have 20 of these. They're worth having in your inventory for sure. And then for this build, I am crafting Exalted Flesh, because what you want to do is have good defense but amazing damage. You just can't overrate how important burst damage is in an invasion. It's not the arena, right? Most sweats will tell you, like moveset is more important than damage, and this or that Asher War sucks because it's too easy to dodge or parry or whatever. And that's true if you're fighting 1v1 against a sweat, but if you're fighting against 3 like spamming noobs, they'll kill you. But like, you know, they're still really dangerous because of how high damage is. But you want really high damage, and they'll probably walk into your like dumb powerful moves. So you want to make your dumb powerful moves stupid powerful so that you can 1 or 2 shot them depending on their vigor. So I put that there, and if I've got the space without getting mauled and I've landed my big move and they're not dead, I'll Albinuric pot them, so that will force them to play passive, because if they come near you, they're dead. They can't heal the big damage you just did to them. Unless they've got meat dumplings, which most on the host side won't, because you have to save scum them. You have to be done playing the game before you start using those, or you lose them forever. Alright, yeah, so we've covered that. Let's now get into some weapons. I mean, we haven't covered consumables at all. There's so many, but those are the basic ones that I use. I think I mentioned these. So these stack with those talismans I was talking about earlier. This one, purple for madness and sleep, red for bleed. There's also one that you can use for poison and rot. I don't worry about that as much, but you can do that. So let's get into some weapons. Now, on my build, I can use just about anything, most things. And the first thing I'm going to put in is some dual spears. I'm in ranged. Alright. So, I'm not talking about what necessarily you should do, right? I'm talking about what I do, because all I can really speak on is what works for me. So just, yeah, hopefully this is helpful in some way. So I put in dual nagis. On most builds, these are going to be the highest AR dual spears. And I put them in my first slot because my main weapon is going to be on the second row, just underneath this this one here. And I don't main these, but I want them quickly if I've decided they're warranted to use. So that's a quick spot to swap to them, and I'll show you why. But I also want another thrusting weapon that isn't dual nagis. Now, you could just go straight to the dual nagis, but you're going to get blocked by a lot of people. So I prefer to have this, the Stitcher. That's a bit more socially acceptable. And that there sits next to the nagis. The reason I want that is for a chase down that isn't dual nagis. And we can put a ledging Asher War on. No, we won't for this one. It doesn't, yeah, just a chase down. Having something with a thrusting moveset or a vertical chopping moveset, very important, especially when you have a co-invader. Nobody likes a co who comes in swinging the gugs around and hitting you when you're trying to chase down the host. Okay, so if you've got a co, you can swap to something like the Stitcher, and you're going to be a lot less likely to hit your co. And we'll put a useful Asher War on that. That'll help us in invasions. So that's one thing. Another, you're going to want, I will put on this. I like the dismounter. It's got it's long. It's got a horizontal moveset, which is also useful if you can't lock on to someone. It doesn't really affect you if you're using a horizontal moveset. It's got pretty reasonable anti-air. It's just all around a good weapon. Like, you can't space a curved greatsword. So and this is a long one. So that's why I like it. And yeah, we'll put another useful thingamabob on that. And in this last top row, it doesn't altogether matter too much because it's so far away from my main weapon. Like, I just put something that I think is cool / useful. Well, Misericord's worth talking about if you do crits. I don't personally parry because I just either is kind of a combination of being bad and having high lat that I'm just not very good at it. So instead I put in the Raptor Talons. Now these things have an R2 true combo. They do stupid bleed build up because of how fast they hit, and then you're getting 60 per hit. Pretty solid damage too on like a dex build, but we'll make them magic on this one, or maybe cold. Yeah, they're better on a dex build, but they're still going to be good on this build. Now, we're getting into row 2, which is the row where I put my main weapon, so it gets a bit more interesting here. Now, like I say, work out a system that works for you. There are better vids, more advanced vids on tele-swapping. This is a really, really basic system that I came up with myself because it works for me. That's what I'm used to. That's why I do it this way. I like to have a great axe, and the reason why is I like the moveset. It's very good on current patch, especially the R1 chain. Chop, 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 chop. It's quite hard to time dodging that, and it'll catch a lot of people. And it hits hard too. Plus gets hyper armor. And I put spinning slash on it, so I can like do spinning slash with hyper armor. It fucking wrecks people. Yeah, good one. Now, I've been doing different things with my main weapon lately, but for this video, I'll just keep it old school. I'm going to put in a health and steeple. Now, this is not so much something I'd use fighting teams. This is it's a great sword with a really solid moveset. You can substitute whatever weapon that you like the best, that you're best with for this slot. This is for your 1v1 against someone who's actually kind of good. That you don't worry about all of that Asher War shit as much and trying to delete them with cheese, because it probably won't work. You go for something with a really comfy moveset and just good damage on its normal attacks. At least I do. So I go for my greatsword. Now, and 1v1s are a big part of invasions. You know, you're going to run into a lot of those. Now we're going to look at some different range tools, which I always have in my right swap. So if I go item type, int gets kind of a special one that's very good, the Death Ritual Spear. Don't bother stabbing anyone with this. But this has a very good L2 that you would use on, like, if they're camping an area, like if they're standing somewhere and they won't move and you want them to move, do this and they'll move, or they might not and they'll die. If they're climbing a ladder, actually I haven't yet, I've only just started using Death Ritual. I haven't actually used it on the ladder. I'm pretty sure it would do the same as Rain of Arrows, which we're also putting on the build on the ladder, which is kill them. Another thing that I'll put on is the aforementioned Rain of Arrows. So that's a great bow. So if I go here, you could use a great bow, or you could use Lion Great Bow, which already has Radahn's Rain, which is just Rain of Arrows. But I'll just go great bow because I have the 20 dex for it. If you only had 18, you'd go for this. And if you had less, you'd tally swap to be able to use this. But I'm 200, I don't have to. And so you put Asher War Rain of Arrows on that. And what you want to be shooting out of that, Golem Arrows. Forget these. Don't use these. These are just there for decoration. Use these. Okay. Regular Golem Arrows. Alright. So we've got a ranged weapon, and then I still, even though I've got the great bow, I still like the jar cannon for when, like, you're quite far away. You got to be in a kind of a safe place to use this. If you don't have the stats for it, you can use this, but this is kind of quite a bit better. Yeah, it can do really good damage, especially if you're using the ritual sword talisman, and it's good for ledging people. Alright, so that's we got some ranged weapons on row 2. Do we have a look at where we're at now? And that's actually filled up row 2. Alright, so below that, I like to have a colossal sword. So, and the reason it's there is just because that's where I've been putting it for a while. That's where I'm used to it being. So on whatever build I'm playing, if I want to reach for my Gugs, the Guts Ultra Great Sword, yeah, that's where that's going to be. And now, AoE's important. Turn and burn's important. Stormhawk Axe is the most popular, and for a reason. On this build, I like Waves of Darkness just because everyone knows what a Stormhawk is at this point. So I'm going to have this, and it's going to have Waves of Darkness on it. And that's going to be in my down swap. I know where that is. So if a group is chasing me, I can go into that, and on an 80-int build, that could very well kill the whole group if they run into it and eat the whole thing, or if I get a direct hit or land the follow-up. It's got an R2 follow-up. Yeah. You can't just throw this one out there. People do know about it. You got to time it. So basically it's very good as a turn and burn. It will also crack shields like Fingerprint Shield. So if someone's turtling, you can use that. Alright, so another thing, I'll just go back to item type, ledging. Your ledging game is obviously going to be pretty important. And there is a best ledging tool in this game, and it's called the the Star Scourge Greatsword, sorry. Star Scourge Greatsword. Let's find that. This is the best. So if you can find a way just to be able to use it, even if you don't have good scaling with it, if you can just two-hand this thing and be able to do the Ash of War, whatever you build. This goes through walls, it has ridiculous range in all directions, up, down, left, right, and it pulls. And you can control the direction that it pulls people in by casting the Ash and then turning to face the direction you want them to go. So you can ledge whole teams with this thing. And so I keep that handy. Alright, so where are we at? We've got 2 more left on this row. And if I don't get everything in on this row, I'm going to have to do another line. Do I want another line? I can't be bothered. There's more that you could put in that would be good, but I can't be bothered doing another line right now, so we're just going to finish it up with this row and then do the shields. So for this build, I'm just going to... Oh no, I'll put those last. We can fit 2 more things in this row. Alright, I'm going to put a Great Knife, and that's going to have Ash of War Assassin's Gambit for access to a minor useful glitch. And it's going to have a soft swap Moonveil, because now if this was Moonveil is the best Estus Punish in the game, probably, right? So this is an Estus Punish for a soft swap from my main weapon. Now you don't need to use Moonveil if you're a Dex build or a Faith build or something like that. You could use Thunderbolt. That's a good one. But Moonveil is the best, but you have to be an int build. So let's look for katanas. Here we go. Here's Moonveil, and that's just a quick swap too. If you know they're going to heal, or other things like they're doing Dragon Breath, or just some big slow AoE. Maybe they're Stormhawking. They're doing something that you don't want to walk into, but you can punish it. So you have a ranged thing that you can swap to. And Moonveil is the best of those, but there are other good ones. Alright, and now we're going to move on to shields. So, a parry tool. Now, you could just go 2 ricketies. I like to have my shields look different so I know what one's what. Rickety is the lighter shield. If all you want is a parry, it weighs 1. But I personally put in a buckler that weighs 1.5. And buckler on its own already has a reasonable parry, but the best parry in the game is carry and retail, so I put that on the buckler. Rickety shield, I'm going to put an Ash of War on that. Spiral Horn shield, that is for resistances, so I have those. Now, worth mentioning when it comes to shields, if you have the equip load, you can also stick this on your back. I don't find it necessary with all the other forms of regen you can stack up to have this as well. It's just like one more thing you have to manage, but you can use this. Yeah, alright. So let's get some Ashes of War going. Alright, so for the Nagis, I'll just put 2 good ones on. So we'll go with Quick Step. Although, no, we'll put, these are magic Nagis, so we'll go ahead and put on Ice Spear. Ice Spear is a good one. And I'll make it magic. You could go cold. I was messing around on this build and I just find I'd rather do them like more damage, so I go magic. Obviously what affinity your Nagis are will depend, or if they even are Nagis, will depend on your main stat. Well, as an int build, I like the magic Nagis, though an argument could be made for cold. And then I'll chuck Endure. You could also go Quick Step. Quick Step is good too. I'll put Endure. Now, Stitcher. I'm going to put Impaling Thrust on that. You could also Piercing Fang. Piercing Fang has much better tracking and better range, but it's slower. So it just depends what you want. In fact, I may even go Piercing Fang. Like in a 1v1, it's not going to be anywhere near as good, but in a chaotic gank. And for my build, I'm making it heavy. Because I've got 54 strength, 2-handed soft cap. Now, while I remember, I also am going to need to grab a staff for this build. That's in ranged, and I want Lusat's staff. There we go, Lusat's. Okay. So, let's keep going. So, Ashes of War, we've got these ones done. Now, this one, I'm going to put Raptor of the Mists on this. It's kind of random, I know, but it's so that when you go into a dungeon where there's those roller things, I can't remember their name, but you know, those big roller dudes, if they're alive, then you can, let's just go ahead and, I'll make these Quick Step. Oh, actually, Endure is probably optimal on these because of their short range. Now I'll put Quick Step on. Quick Step's just fine as well. And it gives me access to Quick Step. So I make them... Let's have a look. What cold or magic? How much? Yeah, I lose a bit of bleed build up there. I'm just going to go magic. So, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, so you want to be able to Raptor of the Mists when that thing is going to hit you, so you can just go through them. It lets you move around the dungeon in a way that the host can't. They have to hide in the side parts when they're going past. Spinning Slash, I talked about this. This is like heal up to full and then YOLO it into the group as a turn and burn when they're chasing you, and you might kill somebody. Now, this one's going to be a bit controversial, but I like it and it works for me, and if need be I can provide video footage of that, whatever. Giant Hunt. So let me talk about Giant Hunt. It doesn't really get hyper armor, it's slow, it can be parried even on an ultra greatsword, which a two-handed ultra greatsword normally can't be parried, but if you've got Shard of Alexander, Spear, Talisman, what you do with this is you R1 into L2 roll catch, and you kill them. All right, they're dead. You don't try that against a Sweat Lord. You have other weapons, but I've killed more people in like the last week with this than anything else. So I'm just speaking my truth here, guys. That's it. Magics I handle with Waves of Darkness. Like, if people are spamming jump attacks, get them to jump into this. This is a good substitute for a Stormhawk turn and burn. It's just good, but it's pretty well known, so you gotta, time it. Assassin's Gambit. So this is something that, let's go heavy, it doesn't matter. If you stack this with the spell, is it called Hidden Body or Unseen Form? I think Unseen Form. I don't know where I keep getting Hidden Body from. If you stack this, you get a little under 30 seconds. 30 seconds less the time it took you to do it, where you can't be locked onto. When either this Ash of War or the spell wears off, you can be locked onto. Now, what that's good for is if someone's using, say, Power Stance Spears or Power Stance Great Spears, or very good if they're using Stars of Ruin. Okay, so if you've got Stars of Ruin gankers, that shuts them down until it wears off, and it makes them play passive. Once they realize they can't get locked onto you, they're just going to run away. So at that point, you pull out the Nuggies and you chase them down. Because the moment that wears off, they're just going to kill you with Stars of Ruin. Rain of Arrows. And now, yeah, the Buckler, in terms of parry frame data and all of that, probably is pretty similar to Carrion Retail, but Carrion Retail's easier to land. Holy Ground, this heals you. So if it uses a bit of FP, but you've got Starlight Shard, so you don't care, this heals you. You could use this as a parry shield. This gives you resistances. I put no skill on it, so I can do my swaps without tying myself in knots, like my soft swaps. Okay, so that's the weapons. Some of them. Alright, so let's say we just equip this, and then this will go all the way over here, because gets it out of the road. I'll put this here, that's my soft swap, and that would be my default setup. Now say there's someone who's annoying me, and I don't care if they block me. I'm swapping Nuggies, I could go to that. Now, the reason I say I haven't had this here lately, I'm sorry, I'm recording a video, I'll talk to you later. The reason I have not had I haven't had this here lately is because I've been maining this. So whatever you're maining goes here. Quicker swap to all of your things, really. Your ranged. Yeah, so really I should have put this here. So you can go down to your... Yeah, just pretend this is my main weapon, even though really it's probably not. Yeah, so I want to swap to Waves of Darkness. It's just here. I want to swap... If I'm here, I want to swap to this. It's just there. And like your moment to use any of these things can pass quite quickly. So, oh, they're climbing a ladder. It's all right next to my main weapon. Oh, they're running. They're running to resummon. Yeah? And that's, you got dual Nagis, you shitter. What else? Swapping in a parry shield would be like that. A heal shield, so it's just, if it's not there, okay, that saved that position. Let's put the Nagi back in to get rid of that position. Okay, so it's like that. What else? So I'm not going to bother upgrading my weapons right now because someone knocked on my door. I need to talk to them. Spells for this build, your build will work differently. All I can say is generally be really tanky and then look at ways to stack up your damage. So, matter of fact, I'm going to upgrade 2 things just so I can demonstrate that, like stacked up damage on this build, just to give you some idea of like the approach to take. Like just find all of the things that boost the damage on the main thing you're using and then use them. So let's go ahead and we're going to upgrade my staff. And we're going to upgrade the gugs. And I'm also going to prepare a few useful spells, and then that will be it. So, we'll go with Scholar's Armament, because that's what I'm using on this build to stack up my damage. And then in my 2 slot, I want this quickly. This is a good one to finish people if they're not quite in fan dagger range, but they are low. Another good one like that could be this. Okay, that's another good one. But because I've got quite low mind, I prefer this. Alright. And just generally, I like it better. I find too many people are too used to... You know, it doesn't matter. Opinions will vary on that. Experiment. Now, so if I go one over, this is for that glitch I was talking about. It is a glitch, but it's so minor I don't think it's dishonest. And Nightmane's Mist is just a very good tool. So we'll just jump down so I can just kind of demonstrate. I can't actually cast spells or anything right now. So we'll go over to what would be my actual main weapon. That or this. This is probably like more generally useful, especially against people who are a little bit better. We'll go with this. It gives the biggest, most impressive numbers. So I spawn into a world. First thing I do is I remove this, the finger. Second thing, when I can move, I get my defense boost on. This is hard tier and bubble tier. You need this. Then I do this. Once I'm near them, and when I'm about to engage this, because this only lasts 30 seconds, and you can see that my damage is, my AR, sorry, not my damage, is 1301. Now what I might also do is swap in this, because this boosts pierce damage, pierce counterattack damage, and this boosts Ashes of War. So you put all that together, R1 into L2, hopefully roll catch. They're either dead or they're very low. You got to get them with that. Then they can't heal. And then you got to chase them down. Unless there's a group on you, in which case, hey, at least you got them off you. You either killed them or you got them off you for a bit. You can fight the other guys who are rushing in to save them. You might even say you're here. The other guys are rushing in to save them. You might go down to here and kill the other guys that come to save them. Alright. And I have a damage buff here, because again, like the philosophy is just be survivable, but stack up that damage. That burst damage, which is that Ash of War damage usually. Though you may also, with these, the Ash of War isn't so important. This is power stance weapons. The way you'd stack up damage for these is with the Spear Talisman. You might have Millicent's and Rotten Wing Sword insignia here. Now the spear talisman, not as important for these actually, because these are magic affinity and that applies to physical. So if you had a physical, if you had these keen, you might have the spear talisman there. What else can I talk about? Oh, the glitch. Okay, so, but there's another thing, alright? So say you missed with your pot and they can heal, or you don't want to bother with the pot, they're going to heal. Soft swap Moonveil, alright? Soft swap Moonveil, so it's got good range. Bam. Get them when they're healing with that. The group's rushing in, you've still got the Moonveil. Take a chunk out of the group. Right? So that's the approach I take. Then, alright, there's a bunch of wizards, and you really don't want to get up on them because they're just going to kill you. You're going to get Stars of Ruin from one side and, say, Waves of Gold from the other, and you're just fucked. You can't run into that and live. So you're going to swap this for this, and you're going to do this, and this. Now you can't be locked onto. Get up on that wizard with your Nagis. Bam. 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 Kill the wizard, alright? They can't lock onto you. So their Stars of Ruin is not going to do anything. You can just... They have to free aim all of their spells, and they probably can't. So there's that. And see, it doesn't last long, though. So... Right, now let's say you're all the way out of heals. Get the hell out of there. Try and make some space. Swap this in. Swap this in. Now, I'm also kind of low on FP. I could drink a flask, but I don't want to waste them. I'm going to put Starlight Shards here. I don't need my Physic anymore. I already drank that, so that can be swapped out. All right, I'm going to use a Starlight Shard. And then I'm going to Holy Ground. And then the moment I get FP back, to be able to do it, and chuck one of these down. And then I'm just going to chill here. And I've got like a burst damage Ash of War if they try and rush me out of here. Now, if I'd made this the right way, I would also throw down one of these. Okay, so yeah, you could do both of these. But because I didn't take the frenzy ending, I can't on this character. So that's how you heal up. If they're right in your face, you just drink your Estus. If you've got a little bit of breathing room, you can put that in and get some more from your Estus. I don't want to go on forever. That's just kind of a general approach. So high base damage and a bunch of different tools for different things. Have the really important ones close to you. That's your chase down. It doesn't always have to be these. You know, your chase down, your turn and burn, like AoE deleter. Your main weapon should really be whatever your best burst damage is. Also have something that's good against a skilled guy, like that you're good with personally. It's not necessarily going to be health and steeple. And your ledging tool. And your ranged options. There's other things that come in handy, like Raptor of the Mists, Quick Step for getting through things like rot, poison, and endure, also worth having. Soft swap to a ranged ability is a good strat for Estus Punish. There are a few good ones. This is the best one. And yeah, that's not everything I know. It's just everything I can think of at the minute, and probably enough to get along with. So I'm gonna stop here.